Deku sacrifices One For All in a desperate attempt to defeat the final villain. But did this chapter just foreshadow a twist that will absolutely ruin the ending of MHA? Is One For All about to evolve into something completely different and something potentially dangerous? Is the ending of MHA going to feature an extremely controversial time travel twist? Let's talk about it right now. You guys know how this works. If you enjoy our MHA videos, you want to see more in the future, leave a quick like and comment right now for that YouTube algorithm. And if you want to do me the honor of subscribing to the channel, that would be amazing. Okay, in the previous chapter, Deku decided that the only way to defeat Shigaraki was to transfer even more of One For All into Shigaraki so that the vestiges could attack the villain from the inside. Deku used some incredibly creative strategic moves, including decoys and separating an entire giant piece of earth from the ground using black chain, just to get the opportunity to force some of his blood to enter one of Shigaraki's wounds. And once Deku's DNA had been successfully transferred to Shigaraki, the second user's vestige was able to infiltrate the villain's body and attack it from the inside. As it turns out, even though One For All can only be transferred willingly, that willing part only applies to the person doing the actual transferring. One For All can be transferred to someone else against that person's will, as long as the current user wills it, and that is exactly what they were able to do to Shigaraki. But when the second user's vestige infiltrated Shigaraki's body, something unexpected happened. Shigaraki's and Deku's memories began to blend together in strange ways, and the sixth user, N, declared that the strategy is working, but it is not enough. Deku needs to keep going and he needs to keep pumping more vestiges into Shigaraki. Presumably, Deku needs to keep fighting Shigaraki physically on the outside, while also launching even more vestiges into him in order to keep attacking him from the inside. As the new chapter begins, Shigaraki and Deku are continuing to fight outside in the physical world as their memories continue to blend within their psyches. In the last chapter, they were memories of meeting members of the League of Villains and the sports festival blending together. And now their memories of the USJ attack begin to swirl around them as they fight. So we see Mineta and Tsuyu swinging around, we see Shigaraki in his old villain costume, the USJ Nomu makes a cameo, and so on. Yoichi believes that this memory blending is happening because the All For One quirk factor is reacting to the One For All quirk factor. And the blending is occurring because there is such a close connection between these two quirk factors. We gotta remember that not only are Yoichi and All For One twin brothers, but One For All was literally created by All For One. So the fact that One For All could not exist without All For One is likely the main reason why these two quirk factors have become so intrinsically linked. But as we know, All For One himself was never able to find the strength to steal One For All, and yet the one with the heart powerful enough to steal it has now finally appeared, and that person is Tomura Shigaraki. Yoichi believes that this is the reason why One For All has been passed down from generation to generation for so long. It was all for the sake of this moment. It was all for the sake of stopping the ultimate villain. Even though most people initially assumed that the final and ultimate villain would be All For One, it was not him in the end. It was actually Tomura Shigaraki. Deku tries to ignore all the random distractions from the USJ battle that are emerging as a result of the memory blending, and he continues to attack Shigaraki in order to get more of his blood into Shigaraki's wounds. The priority here is to transfer even more vestiges into Shigaraki's body. And actually, Deku is hoping that he can transfer all of them together in one single attack, which should overwhelm Shigaraki and allow the heroes to finally defeat him. As he continues to desperately risk his life in pursuit of this goal, Deku manages to land a punch on the villain again, and he tries to transfer all the remaining vestiges in that single punch. Unfortunately, that plan doesn't work because most of the transfer is rejected by Shigaraki. The only vestige that managed to actually break through was N, and this did manage to do more damage to Shigaraki, but again, it's simply not enough. This means that Shigaraki has the ability to reject most of the attempts to infiltrate his body, but he can't shut everybody out. It's still possible to keep sending the vestiges in, but it will be a slower process than the heroes were hoping for. What makes Deku's job even harder is the fact that those extra giant fingers that Shigaraki wraps himself in as a form of armor don't seem to have a connection to the rest of his body. That means that damaging them and getting blood into them is useless. Deku has to punch his way all the way through them and damage Shigaraki's actual body, and that's the only way to successfully initiate more transfers. But even though it's hard, Deku does believe that he's getting close, because he starts seeing Shigaraki's memories of back when he was Tenko Shimura. In fact, this looks to be the memory of Tenko being escorted back home by a stranger in a suit and hat, a scene we saw in chapter 235. Chapter 235 and 236 are the ones that covered the tragic flashback and how Shigaraki's decay quirk suddenly manifested out of nowhere and caused him to accidentally kill his entire family. Well, except his father, because killing his father was not an accident. Several years ago, I made a collab with Zonin where we talked about the theory that Shigaraki was actually born quirkless because he was already a 5-year-old without a quirk, and the man who actually walked him home that day was All For One. During the walk, All For One secretly transferred decay into Tenko because he knew that it would manifest suddenly and create a horrific tragedy that would change Tenko forever. After the quirk manifested, literally within that same chapter, All For One swooped in to groom the traumatized Tenko into the perfect future vessel for himself. And the reason why he chose Tenko Shimura was not a coincidence. He did it because he wanted to mess with the family of Nana Shimura, a former user of One For All and his former nemesis. To me personally, this theory was basically confirmed in chapter 350 when we see All For One discovering Toya's charred body on the mountain and then taking him into that creepy orphanage. All For One was wearing practically the same suit and hat as he was in chapter 235 when he dropped Tenko off at home, so to me, that is confirmation. Horikoshi seems to be reminding us of this again because he is preparing to make the big reveal about Shigaraki's quirk during this final fight. The reveal might be made when Nana's vestige finally makes contact with Shigaraki's All For One vestige world, and even though this is something that we have been anticipating for years, the fact is that it could actually have massive consequences for the battle that is now unfolding. You have to remember that a big part of Shigaraki's personality right now is the fact that he has finally become his own independent person. He finally managed to free himself from All For One's control and blaze his own path. He is finally free to do what he wants to do and be who he wants to be. Unfortunately for us, he wants to be a destroyer who annihilates everything, but still, in his own mind, this is freedom. But what happens when Shigaraki realizes that even his own quirk, decay, was never actually his, and that even that aspect of his life was actually forced upon him by All For One? The entire persona of Tomura Shigaraki emerged after Tenko accidentally killed his family, and after he was then manipulated by All For One and Ujiko to become a villain. If Shigaraki suddenly realizes that all of that was a lie, that all of that was just some part of All For One's elaborate master plan to control him and take over his body, then how will he react? Will he start second-guessing himself and his entire identity? Will he start questioning his destructive final plan for Japan? And will this creeping doubt within Shigaraki's mind allow the vestiges to take him down from the inside? Shigaraki claimed that Tenko is dead, that he no longer exists, but when he realizes that Tomura is actually just an illusion created by All For One, how will he handle the news? And how will Shigaraki's reaction affect the epic final battle? I can't wait to get the answer to these questions. Meanwhile, the floating UA has finally descended to Earth after its emergency landing, but thankfully it happened so slowly that no one seems to have been injured. The descent was of course managed very carefully by many people who worked hard to bring the building down safely, including Gentle and Cementos, among many other. Now that she's no longer worried about crash landing to Earth, Mei Hatsume manages to send a drone with a camera to the battlefield near Mount Fuji, and this brings back the live feed of the battle for the whole world to see. On top of the live feed, Mei's drone may also be carrying some brand new special gear for Deku to help him win the final battle. I don't know, we'll have to wait and see. The people watching around the world are shocked to see Shigaraki's grotesque finger armor transformation, and then we all witness something even more unexpected. Little Eri seems to be running towards the battlefield, presumably in the hopes of reaching Deku and helping him rewind his body and recover from his many wounds. But wait, how in the world would Eri have gotten anywhere near Mount Fuji on her own? Is Horikoshi just trying to mislead us at the end of the chapter? Or did someone actually bring her there? Or is something else going on? She doesn't seem to be just like a memory or illusion since ectoplasm seems to actually see her, so how could Eri possibly fit into the story at this point, during such an intense and high-stakes battle? Assuming that Eri is really going to the battlefield and this is not misdirection, is she going to use her quirk to rewind Deku's injuries and heal him? Or could she potentially try to do something even crazier? I've heard some people, including my boy Zonin, speculating that in the end, Eri might try to actually rewind Tomura Shigaraki back to being Tenko Shimura. Like maybe at the end of the battle when Shigaraki has been defeated and is basically dying, Deku and Eri decide to save him by rewinding him all the way back to when he was Tenko, before all the trauma and evil, so that he can have a fresh start and become the person that his grandma Nana always wanted him to be. Let's be real, that's definitely exactly the type of thing that Deku would want to do, but if something like that happens, it will feel like a really cheap cop-out ending. Instead of Deku actually having to make the tough decision to kill Shigaraki in order to save everyone else, he will be able to just turn back the clock and give Shigaraki a complete life do-over as Tenko. Knowing both Deku and Horikoshi, this may well turn out to be the kind of ending that we are going towards. But do you think that an ending like this can ever be pulled off successfully? Or do you think that it's bound to feel like a cop-out? Let me know down in the comments. Also, let me know what you guys think will happen when all of the vestiges, including Nana, enter Shigaraki's body. Is Shigaraki just gonna be defeated? Or could both Shigaraki and Deku begin to change and evolve their quirks as a result of One for All and All for One merging and resonating even more? Could we finally be heading for the ultimate quirk singularity, where both One for All and All for One become so closely intertwined that they merge into a single godly super quirk? Don't forget to drop your feedback down in the comments. If you're looking for an epic MHA video to watch next, don't ignore my video on the 13 strongest multiple quirk users in the series, link on screen and in the description. If you guys enjoy my MHA videos, you want to see more in the future, leave a quick like to let me know. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do me the honor of subscribing, it means a lot.